So today we're going to talk about something that every high performer has definitely felt, but very few of us actually understand. What really happens to your mind when the pressure is on? This right here, this is the core signal we're going to decode. It's not about what you know, it's about what you can access when it really counts. Look, we've all been there. You're smart, you're capable, you've got all the data, but in that critical moment, you make a call that, when you look back, seems almost self-defeating. We're about to get into the physics of why that happens.
Okay, so first things first. It is so important to get this. This isn't some personal flaw you have. It is a predictable pattern that shows up in every single high-stakes environment you can possibly imagine. Just picture an emergency room, a flood of patients, you've got incomplete information, and life or death decisions are being made in a matter of seconds. Or think about a trader on a volatile market floor, where just one reactive decision can literally wipe out millions. That same pressure hits a founder when their runway is about to vanish, and the entire future of their company is just hanging by a thread. And then you've got a legal team forced to completely rethink their entire strategy at the very last minute. You see, the context changes completely, but that cognitive collapse, it's identical. So if it's not the situation, then what is the underlying system here? All right, so let's shift gears. We've seen the pattern, now let's get into the mechanics. We're going to go under the hood and see exactly how our brain's operating system gets hijacked by pressure. Here is the critical shift that happens inside your brain. In a calm state, your strategic prefrontal cortex is driving the bus. But under pressure, a flood of alarm hormones, think cortisol, basically yanks resources away from that smart strategic part and shoves them over to the reactive, primitive part, the limbic system. Your brain's new priority isn't to be smart, it's to be fast. It's optimizing for immediate survival, not for complex problem solving. Now, this hijack triggers a state called perceptual contraction, and this is a really subtle but critical point. You feel like you're laser focused, right? But what's really happening is your brain is aggressively throwing out any information it decides is non-essential for immediate survival. And here's the kicker. The solution to your problem? It's almost always hiding in that peripheral data your brain just threw in the trash. Your focus becomes a set of blinders. And this perceptual contraction, it has another effect. Your brain literally stops seeing a wide network of possibilities. Instead, it just sees one single narrow corridor. It's no longer trying to find the best outcome, it's just trying to avoid the worst one. And that's why we get that feeling of having no choice. It's not that the choice has disappeared. It's just that our internal risk assessment has cranked up the danger level on every other option to catastrophic. So, what's the real cost of living in this state long term? It's not just about one bad call. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your single most valuable asset, your judgment. See, when you operate in this contracted state over and over again, your brain starts to treat it as the default setting. Strategic thinking gets harder. You start seeing the world in these false binaries. It's this or that, win or lose. And over time, this just grinds away at the very problem-solving depth that made you successful in the first place. You have to understand, breakdown is almost never a sudden event. It's the quiet accumulation of these tiny, invisible misalignments. And that, right there, is the key. This isn't a failure of your character. It's not a weakness. It is a systems problem. It's a fundamental mismatch between the cognitive load you're under and how your brain is perceiving it. So if that's the problem, what's the edge? How do you get out of this? Well, the answer isn't some new productivity hack or a breathing exercise. The real edge is found in adopting a completely different mental model for what's actually happening inside your head. Think about it. When those threat signals finally die down, your prefrontal cortex, the smart part of your brain, can finally come back online. And that's where divergent, creative thinking comes from. You see, creativity isn't something you add back in. It's what naturally re-emerges when the brain's alarm system finally goes quiet. So often, we frame this kind of recovery as an indulgence, right? It's a luxury, maybe even a sign of weakness or avoidance. But if you look at it from a systems view, it's a non-negotiable process of neural recalibration. You're not resting, you are recalibrating. This isn't about ditching responsibility. It's about doing what's necessary to actually be effective. All right, so let's turn this whole analysis inward now. I'm going to leave you with 3 questions. Think of them as a way to check your own internal gauges.
First, where are you stuck in tunnel vision right now? In what part of your work or your life are you processing fewer and fewer variables, and maybe even mistaking that narrow view for intense focus?
And where do you feel like you're trapped, like you have no other option? Just ask yourself, is it possible the options are still there, but your internal system has just turned the risk dial on them up to 1,000? And finally, how could you slow down? And I don't mean take a vacation. I mean, what is the smallest, tiniest action you could take to introduce a pause into the system? The goal isn't to escape the pressure. It's just to give your prefrontal cortex a sliver of a second to come back online. You might find that the answer to that question is the most strategic move you can possibly make.